performance, passion, pride.
Kenneth Chamberlain was a 66-year-old former Marine and corrections officer with bipolar disorder. He accidentally triggered his Life Aid medical alert necklace. As the police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical technicians responded to his alert, he tried to explain that this was a mistake and that he did not need medical attention. As the police broke down his door, they alleged that he came at them with a butcher's knife multiple times, ultimately ending as he was shot in the chest. Chamberlain died in surgery.
Trayvon Martin was 17 when a neighbor was driving through the neighborhood and called the police to report a suspicious person. The neighbor followed Martin after the police dispatcher told him, "We don't need you to do that." Eventually, a violent encounter took place between Martin and the neighbor, ending with Martin being fatally shot.
Diallo, a 23-year-old immigrant, was stopped and interrogated by 4 plainclothed police officers. When they ordered him to show his hands, he supposedly ran into a nearby apartment. When he reached into his pocket to show his wallet, the police began to open fire. The police fired 41 shots in total, 19 of which were fatal hits.
Michael Brown was 18 years old when he stole a box of cigars and forcefully shoved the market clerk, which led to a confrontation between Brown and the police. Brown reached through the window of the police vehicle trying to get the officer's gun. The gun fired twice during the struggle, and Brown was pursued by the police as he ran from the police vehicle. Eventually, the police found Brown and fatally shot him 6 times.
I don't have a gun. Oscar Grant was 22 years old when he was returning from a New Year's Eve party with friends on a rapid transit train. Police responded to a physical altercation that involved up to 20 people on an incoming train. Grant and several of his friends were removed from the train and detained on the platform. Upon hearing that he was going to be arrested, he attempted to stand up, but was forced to the ground face first. While trying to put handcuffs on Grant, one of the officers shot Grant in the back. Grant was pronounced dead in the hospital.
You shot me. 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 You shot me.
John Crawford was 22 years old when he picked up an unpackaged pellet gun in a Walmart. As he walked around the store with the pellet gun, customers became uncomfortable and the police were called. Allegedly, he did not respond to verbal commands to drop the pellet gun and lie down on the ground. 2 shots were fired into Crawford's torso and arm, and he was pronounced dead at the hospital.
Eric Garner was 43 years old when he was approached by 2 plain-clothed police officers in front of a beauty supply store, as he allegedly was selling illegal cigarettes. After a verbal conflict with the police officers, Garner was put in a chokehold and brought to the ground. Garner is heard on the video taken by a bystander saying, "I can't breathe," 11 times while laying face down on the sidewalk. Then he lost consciousness. He lay motionless, handcuffed, and unresponsive for several minutes before an ambulance arrived. He was pronounced dead at the hospital 1 hour later.
When the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day. When the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory. 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 Oh, glory. Glory. One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day. When the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory. 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 Oh, glory. Glory. Now the war is not over. Victory isn't won. But we'll fight on to the finish. And then when it's all done. Now the war is not over. Victory isn't won. We'll fight on. And then when it's all done. We'll cry glory. Glory. Oh, glory. 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 We'll cry glory. Oh, glory. Yeah.
Tell me now, every man, woman, and child, even Jesus got his crown in front of a crowd. They march with the torch, we gonna run with it now. Never look back, we done gone hundreds of miles. From dark roads, he rose to become a hero. Facing the legal justice, his power was the people. Enemy is lethal, a king became regal. Saw the face of Jim Crow under a bald eagle.
The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful. We sing, our music is the cuts that we bleed through. Somewhere in the dream we had an epiphany. Now we right the wrongs in history. No one can win the war individually. It takes the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory. The coming of the Lord, my eyes have seen the glory.
One day, when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory. 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 Oh, glory. 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 Oh, glory. Glory. Now the war is not over. Victory isn't won. We'll fight on to the finish. And then when it's all done, now the war is not over. Victory isn't won. We'll fight on to the finish. And then when it's all done, now the war is not over. Victory isn't won. We'll fight on to the finish. And then when it's all done, now the war is not over. Victory isn't won. We'll fight on to the finish. And then when it's all done, now the war is not over. Victory isn't won. We'll fight on to the finish. And then when it's all done, now the war is not over. Victory isn't won. We'll fight on to the finish. And then when it's all done, we'll cry glory, glory, oh glory, glory, oh glory, glory, oh glory, glory.
In most situations, it is more poignant to remember the first words a person utters rather than the last words. Social media is replete with videos that capture children speaking their first words and identifying with their parents. With 7 last words of the unarmed, the focus shifts from the first words to the last words a person speaks. A juxtaposition between life and death opens when these Americans fight for their lives. Although each circumstance and condition exposes different elements, the through line of unconcern marks every encounter. The finality of a person's last words places a finite number and value on the words a person speaks in a lifetime. In many cases, a person's final words may convey either love, instruction, or warning. This moment gives the person speaking their last words a powerful opportunity to demonstrate their humanity. Whether a person speaks or chooses to remain silent at their final moment, it is their choice, a choice that reveals their individuality and personality. This immutable truth provides an interesting position to view and respond to social constructs, events, and ramifications that seek to rob men, women, and children of their humanity by robbing them of their choices in choosing their last words. Given the difficult circumstances, these citizens use their last words to implore, cajole, convince, persuade, or beg for their lives. This process devalues their humanity. In 1955, 65 years ago, the grotesque picture of Emmett Till, a 14-year-old African-American boy in Jet magazine, demonstrated the brutality, inhumanity, and illegality that African-Americans faced in the South. Emmett Till's picture pricked the soul of the African-American community and galvanized their resistance against the practices and laws that ignored their humanity and trampled on their rights. In much the same way, a 17-year-old African-American teenager, Darnella Fraser's cell phone video of George P. Floyd, who died with the knee of a policeman firmly pressed against his neck, seared the soul of the United States. The video forced all American citizens to confront a racist legacy that is as indelible as the Mississippi River that flows through the heart of the nation, connecting Mississippi to Minnesota. Although the men who lynched, mutilated, and tortured Emmett Till were private citizens, the Jim Crow laws that prohibited African Americans from registering to vote protected them from punishment. In Emmett Till's case, 12 white men in Mississippi deliberated for less than an hour, rendering a not guilty verdict. It is notable that in the Floyd case, a diverse jury arrived at a different verdict and convicted the police officer. 7 Last Words of the Unarmed examines the critical moments when an unarmed person loses their life to state-sanctioned violence, requiring us to examine our society and the types of authority that we place in the hands of our fellow citizens. These lives provide a mirror for us to view the inequality that exists in our society. As he sought to redeem humankind through his sacrifice, Jesus uses his 7 last words to open the door for humankind to reconnect to God. At every step of this process, his focus remained on the redemptive nature of sacrifice. It is hoped that the last words of the unarmed can open a moment for a constructive dialogue that includes the entire United States community. We must reflect on what we can do to live up to the concepts that undergird our nation. In the preamble of the Constitution, the stated purpose of our nation is to form a more perfect union and to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. The only way for these words of the Constitution to become a reality is for people to understand, as Martin Luther King stated in a letter from the Birmingham jail, that we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. As we move forward in this great enterprise to create a more perfect union, it is incumbent upon every person to consider what they can do to support an equitable society where government protects the lives and liberty of all people and provides an opportunity for each citizen to pursue their version of happiness.